Hello, my name is Simon from Zach Law, and in this episode I'm going to talk about child support in Alberta, Canada. What is this child support and how would a person go about getting it? The following does not constitute legal advice. I'm not your lawyer. I'm simply providing some information about what is child support in general and the process for a general population. Okay, what is child support? Child support is where parents of a child are separated and a parent who is having parenting time with the child receives money from the other parent, typically on a monthly basis. Now, there's different kinds of child support, and the child support I'm going to focus on in this episode is called Section 3 child support. This is the normal child support where a person would receive, say, a monthly amount, $200 or $1,200, whatever the amount is, on a regular basis for the child. Now, child support is, first of all, calculated based on parenting time. So there's so many different situations in family law where a parent would have time with one child and the other parent would have time with the other child, or the parents would have the children together. One parent would have the child 100% of the time, or the parents may share the children back and forth 50% of the time or 40% of the time. So the first part of the analysis is deciding how much parenting time does the person have. So in the example where, say, a heterosexual couple, the mother has the children most of the time, say 75% of the time or 100% of the time, the father in that example would send child support to the mother. Now, the mother would receive this money, and it would be presumably in her discretion how she wants to spend that money. So she could, spend it on, clothing for the children, or maybe she likes to drink rosé or whatever. I mean, that's the decision making regarding children, where they live, what school they go to, big decisions, medical decisions. Those decisions for the children is a separate issue, but the day-to-day living is typically with the parent who has parenting time. So the mother would receive that money and have discretion about how she wants to spend that money. So in a slightly different example, where let's say the parents have approximately equal parenting time. So in this example, a father has parenting time 50% of the time, and the mother has parenting time 50% of the time. So the children go back and forth, say on a weekly schedule, or maybe 2 days on, 2 days off, whatever. Or approximately 50-50. Maybe it could be 40-60 or 41, 59% of the time, something in that range, about half. The mother would pay child support to the father based on her income, and the father would pay child support to the mother based on his income. And there would be a simple subtraction or differential, how much child support is paid in total from one parent to the other. As I mentioned, child support is based on the income of the payer. That means how much money does the payer make? Again, to return to our example, let's say the mother, just for simplicity, the mother has parenting time 61% of the time. So she's going to receive child support, and she's not going to pay any child support to the father. It will be based on the father's income only. So how much money does he make in a year? That amount of money, that number, goes into a simple grid that the law provides, and it spits out a number. So let's say he makes $40,000 per year, has one child, they live in Alberta. It'll give a number. He has to pay the mother X number of dollars per month. And so that number is available to everybody. You can look up that number. You Google child support calculator, and one of the top hits should be this website, justice.gc.ca. That's the government of Canada website. Child support calculator, you put in the province, Alberta, number of children, 1, 2, or however many children are involved, and the income of the payer. So again, if the children are equally shared, the parenting time is equal, you would do this for each parent and do a subtraction. Or if one of the parents has the children more than 60% of the time approximately, simply the income of the payer. And it will spit out a number, $200 per month, $1,200 per month, whatever the amount is. And that's the Section 3 child support amount that one parent must pay to the other parent. Before we go any further, I want to mention that there is a different kind of child support also. It's called extraordinary expenses. And so these are expenses that are reasonable but extraordinary for the parent to pay. For example, braces would be a typical example where the children get a little older, braces could cost whatever, $15,000 or maybe $20,000, however much it is. And then that's too much for one parent to pay, but it might be reasonable for both parents to pay together if the child needs it and it's within their means to pay that for braces. Another example of an extraordinary expense, or Section 7 expenses, they're also called, might be voice lessons for a child prodigy. Special voice lessons might cost $10,000 in a year, for example, and let's say the parents' combined income is $80,000. Well, it might be reasonable in those particular circumstances for parents to spend $10,000 per year on voice lessons for a kid if they're a prodigy. I mean, again, it's so fact-driven, like what is reasonable? I mean, is it reasonable for people on minimum wage to pay for hockey for their kids? Maybe not. I mean, hockey can be pretty expensive. So again, I mean, school fees, it's probably would be included. So Section 7 expenses are a whole different topic. These special expenses like sports and again, they're driven by facts. So if a person maybe has medical insurance or they might have a good medical plan through their work, it might be free for them to pay for the child's dental expenses, or they might only have to pay 10% of dental expenses, whereas the other parent might not have that plan. So again, these are all kind of fact-driven situations. But Section 3 child support that we're talking about, the normal child support, that's simply based on the income of the payer. So we talked about that income. What is that income? What is that number that the other person is making? So this is really where lawyers usually get involved, but it doesn't have to be too complicated. The most simple way to calculate a person's income, that's the default position of the law, is to look at the person's tax returns and any notices of assessment for the last 3 years. So for example, right now it's the year 2020. So you look at the last 3 years filed, maybe 2019, 2018, 2017, tax returns. And what is that line 15,000, that total income of the person? And if that amount has a trend, either increasing over the course of the last 3 years. So for example, in 2017, they made 40,000, 2018, they made 42,000, and 2019, the person made 45,000. That's an increasing trend. You'd simply use the most recent year and say that person makes $45,000. Or if the trend is decreasing, so 45,000, 42,000, $40,000 of income per year, the most recent year, you would just simply use the most recent year and say that person made 40,000. And if the trend goes up and down, like 40, 45, 42, you might just take the average of the last 3 years. Unless this method is unfair for some reason. For example, it may happen that a person has stock options in 1 year, and so their tax returns don't reflect their income. Another example might be if a person has shares in a professional corporation, that they can capture income in the corporation, save it in a tax-free savings account or whatnot, and defer their taxes. They wouldn't even need to put it in a tax-free savings account, I guess, if they're deferring their taxes. But the but you know, so a person would have to disclose that information as well. So as we'll come to in a moment, how do you find out how much money the other person is making? Is that both sides have to disclose their sources of income, including interests in private corporations, social assistance, any sources of income, and so that a person's income can be calculated. Now, a person may be unemployed, for example, and a court, I think the default position would be to say that, well, is there some reason that person could not be earning at least minimum wage? I mean, unless the person maybe has evidence that they have a disability, maybe they're just only earning less than minimum wage because they're on AISH or some sort of social assistance, in which case their income would be based on their actual income. Typically, a person can make minimum wage, which is $32,500 per year in Alberta. So the court may look at a person and say, well, no, I think that this person is capable, certainly of making, this much money. They may be unemployed now, but I mean, really their income is that amount. So a court would impute and simply say, no, that's how much money you make, whether you make it or not. And that's sort of the way the law works, is that the judges find facts. They find facts because when people have all kinds of disputes, often one person is lying, and so we have to determine what are the facts, and then we determine, what is the law, and so that's the way the law works. Okay, so that's basically how the court would determine a person's income. First starting point is basically using their tax returns for the last 3 years, unless for some reason that's unfair. So how does this work practically? Let's say, for example, that you are a person who has the children most of the time, or maybe you share the children back and forth equally, but the other parent is making more money than you. So you want child support. And it's not just what you want, it's that the children deserve that quality of life. I mean, the law has analyzed this issue, hammered it to death. I mean, there's so many issues with it where one parent makes all the money and has lots of fun with the kids, and the other parent is boring at their house because they don't have enough clothing, or whatever issues, right? It's for the children. It's what's for the children. So how does it work? There's typically 2 courts you can go to in Alberta. The Superior Court is the Court of Queen's Bench, and then there's the Provincial Court. So usually and typically you go to Provincial Court to get child support. An example where you might want to go to Court of Queen's Bench is if the couple were legally married and they're getting divorced through the Court of Queen's Bench. Then they might need to talk to a Superior Court judge just to resolve everything together. And in that case, before the parties went before a judge to argue about this, they'd have to talk to a lawyer at the courthouse through a dispute resolution officer program, typically at least in Calgary and Edmonton areas, to speak to a lawyer and just to make sure everybody is in the same universe. We're talking about the same things here. Can we resolve this by consent? Are we on the same page? And just agree to an order that says, this is how much money you're making, this is what child support is. But typically people would go through provincial court, especially self-represented people. Provincial court, go Google Alberta courts. Top result on Google is going to be albertacourts.ca. Click on provincial court, drop down menu for areas of law, family law, forms, publications, and then there'll be a list of PDFs that you can fill in. You'll need to download Acrobat Reader if you don't have it, but so then you can fill in the forms. Probably get a family law claim, request for financial information, and I think it's a child support statement, not a parenting statement. There, anyway, you'll see there's like dozens and dozens of documents that are available. So basically, you want family law claim. You click on that one, and it'll tell you what forms you need in there. You'll say, what do you want? Do you want financial information from the other side? Yeah, click that. It says, then you're going to need a request for financial information. Do you want child support? Yeah, click that one. It says, well, it must attach form, whatever, 30, whatever, child support claim. And so you fill in those forms, names of the parties, addresses, how much money you've made for the last 3 years, where are your tax forms. You're going to need that evidence, any income that you make. You need those documents. Attach those, and you just fill out the forms as they come. And the child support claim, I think you need to get sworn. So you would bring that before somebody who can take an oath, commissioner for oaths, be like a lawyer. There may be someone at the courthouse who could help you out, direct you on that. And 3 photocopies, so 3 copies, bring it to the courthouse, the clerk, provincial court clerk in this case, and they'll stamp 3 copies, you pay $50, and then you keep 2 copies of these forms, the court will keep 1 copy, and you have to give 1 copy to the other's parent, either in person. I guess you could give it in registered mail. I don't want to give too much legal advice about that, but you have to make sure that the other parent gets that form together with the court date. We're going to appear in court in a couple months, a month and a half. You have 30 days to disclose your financial information and appear in court before a judge if we can't work this out. And it may be possible that the other parent will be willing to resolve this without going to court, or the parties could hopefully come to the judge and be like, hey, Your Honor, we're on the same page here. We just want to resolve this. Can we get an order to set this done? That would be the best outcome probably. And the court could just help the couple to make an order so it's set in paper, done, and then it prevents disputes in the future. People saying, oh no, you didn't pay, or all different kinds of situations that might occur. So in any case, the parties will have an opportunity to go before the judge. So the judge will have this copy of papers that says on a certain day, here's their tax returns, this is how much money they're making, and the judge will make a decision. Say, the mother must pay to the father $350 per month in child support because the mother's income is this much, the father's income is this much, and the parties should register this order with a maintenance enforcement program, and they should disclose their financial information every year by June 31st. Signed, the Honorable Judge. So that's basically how the parties would get an order. The court, a lawyer could help out, certainly drafting the order. The court may be able to write the order for the parties if they don't know how to do that. The order should have certain terms and conditions, for example, whether the child support would automatically recalculate each year because a party's income might go up or might go down. And so are the parties going to sue each other each time or every few years, or should it just be automatically recalculated once per year? So those kind of terms would be in the order. The judge will sign that, and the party who's receiving the money obviously wants to bring this order to, actually, maybe both parties would want this order to go through the maintenance enforcement program, possibly. Again, just depends. Sometimes people take money and then they lie about it. They say they didn't receive that money. So there's so many situations where it's nice that a third party, a governmental agency, will calculate all this for the parties. They don't have to be getting in fights with each other about, did you give me money or not? Leave that to the governmental agency, and the parties don't necessarily need to even talk to each other after that. So they would bring this piece of paper called an order to the maintenance enforcement program and fill out their application with a copy of the order, and then the maintenance enforcement program will make sure that the money transfers every month. They'll calculate how much was given, what are the parties' income, and they can keep track of that. And if the party stops paying, then they can garnish wages, take people's credit, take people's driver's license and things like that to kind of make sure that children receive support. And this is a debt that will stick around even through, it's one of those debts that's, children are real. They need food, they need shelter, they need support. and so that's the real person, right? So that doesn't just go away. I don't hate to say that, but it's just like, that's child support. It's like parents, the children deserve that child support. They need it, right? So that's the kind of the line that society takes on that. So a parent can't just be like, yeah, I don't want to pay child support anymore. I don't like these kids anymore. I don't want to see them. They're just not real anymore. It's like, no, that's not really how it works, right? Okay. So I think, yeah, that's sort of like a summary of how the process works. I guess there's so many questions, so many things that you can talk about child support. I mean, there's retroactive child support. It's a thing. Typically, retroactive support, child support, can theoretically go back 3 years, because every year, once per year, both parents have a right to demand financial information from the other party. So they can either voluntarily exchange, their tax returns from the last 3 years or from the previous year, or either party has a right to fill out a document called a request for financial information, or in Queen's Bench called the name slips me now. Basically, yeah, request for financial information in provincial court. A notice to disclose in Queen's Bench. It's just a document you fill out. I request the first 9 items which pertain to income, tax returns for the last 3 years, any interests in corporations, any income from any sources, and send that to the opposing side, the other party, and they have to provide the financial information so that they can update. Be like, yeah, like his income is increased, like slightly, just leave it, or no, I want to pursue that further. If a person does not request the financial information or demand the financial information through a court hearing, through this notice to disclose or request for financial information, and kind of just like lets time pass by, 5 years, 10 years, a person cannot go back 10 years ago or 20, 18 years ago and trying to get child support for like years and years in the past. There may not be any reliable information about that person's income 10 years ago. A person doesn't even keep their tax returns that long. So you typically have a right to information for the last 3 years to do that. So now that doesn't mean you can necessarily get child support for the last 3 years. I mean, it could be a little bit unfair to kind of pop that out of the blue and be like, yeah, I know that you're in a tough position, you don't have any money, but I think you should pay child support for the last 3 years, like totally out of the blue. Like the person hasn't saved any money, they didn't know this was coming. It's like, it's kind of unfair, right? So there is kind of a thing that if child support's going to be an issue in the future, that you sort of have to broach the topic with the person beforehand. So for example, maybe you're not receiving child support right now, but you think you might want to receive child support in the future. You might want to broach the conversation with the other parent, even in a text or email, something like that, being like, hey, I know we're not paying, doing child support right now, but it's an issue. Maybe you should save money for it going forward. Something like that. I mean, it's kind of like pretty awkward, but it's sort of like, hey, like, the children need child support. Think about that. Think about these things, right? That way, few years down the line, you can, make that application to court and be like, hey, you know what? For the last 3 years, you knew that child support was an issue. You knew you had to pay child support. You knew the children needed it. You didn't pay anything. I think you should pay back pay for the last 3 years. So that's sort of how that works a little bit, in my understanding. That's about all I want to say about the general process of child support, and what it is, how you go about getting it. Again, like there's a lot of practicalities of how do you fill out the forms, where do you swear it, and different arguments that might come up. I'm unemployed, or where is the person's money? People may be able to keep money in different income in different ways. So that's often why a lawyer might get involved to help out with this process. But yeah, I think it's important again to emphasize that the children, I think that the law is pretty simple in this way, just saying that the children deserve child support. The child support is for the children. It's not about what the mom or dad thinks or what they want. It's really about the children in that way. So yeah, that's about all I want to say on that episode. So yeah, keep well, my friends.